Welcome to the next installment of the Farzad Mesbahi podcast. Today, I have the great Jeff Roberts with me today. You probably know him from all the amazing drone footage that he has done for us for the last, how long? How long have you been doing this for, Jeff?
It'll be 2 years in July.
Okay.
We started July of 2020.
Okay. So, wow. So it's almost daily too, right? You've been creating these videos
Yeah,
every day.
it's intended to be daily, but life gets in the way sometimes. But for the most part, it's every single day, and I'll miss a couple days here or there. And
Sure.
I know I went on a Christmas vacation that my wife forced me on.
How dare
That
you.
was a week. That was very painful. And then, of course, my father passed away, and that was a week. So
Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much every day.
Awesome. Yeah. And that's one of the really cool channels that, even while I was working at Tesla, it was so cool to watch that happen, because obviously there's so many of us internally that are excited for that building to come up. And then you're one of the primary sources for not just folks in the company, but obviously outside of the company to see how that factory is progressing. And I had some questions. I want to pick your brain about sort of the things you've seen, why you started doing it in the first place. I also have some questions about Austin in general and how that ties into the build out that Tesla's doing as well, just to kind of pick your brain on that stuff. But I guess I want to start by asking what made you want to start this journey for the last couple of years of going out almost every day and doing these amazing drone shots? I'm really curious to hear.
Sure. Well, I never intended to do any of that. But, being a Tesla fan, of course, we were at that time, it was between Austin and Tulsa. And, Tulsa had that big statue that they put Elon's head on, and, they were really going for it. And I thought they had a good commercial, campaign. So I was really keeping my fingers crossed for Austin. And then when we got the announcement that it was going to be Austin, we were like, okay, where's it going to be? So we, found our way there. A few of us quad squad guys just independently before we knew each other back at that time. And I remember being at the site, I think it was July 23rd, and I had my iPhone. I just, drove around, and there was no security back then. It was just like big flatland kind of moonscape type of, dirt, and Martin Marietta, of course, with their cement trucks. And that was really the only thing going on at that site. And so I could drive right in. So I drove in, I drove through the back on this little trail, and there was like a big earth mover and an excavator back there, like just in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of cars. And I'm like, okay, this must be it. And I posted the video on my channel, which previous to that was just personal videos. And it kind of blew up in the context of my videos. It's like, for me, that's a huge video. And I started reading the comments, and people were asking, hey, can you do a drone flight of the site and just kind of give us, incremental updates of the construction, like, the Berlin guys and the Shanghai guys? And I thought about it, and I'm like, all right, why not? I used to fly a drone back in the day, drone 1.0, back in the Phantom days. I thought I could brush off the skills. And so I got a drone, and I did it the next day. And, the rest is history, as they say. Except for when I got the cease and desist order, that kind of put a pause button on the mix. But other than that, it's just been pretty much a daily grind, and it's a joy for me to do it. And it's actually, Giga Texas is almost exactly halfway between where I live and where my company is. So I'm going by there almost every day anyway. So I just thought, why don't I just stop on my way to the office and do some flying and then keep on trucking? And,
Gotcha.
So it's been not a huge inconvenience for me to do this. And that's the only way it's getting done, because otherwise, if somebody was paid to do this, they wouldn't be able to do it. It's just too much consistency, but I love it. And I want to share the Tesla message with the world. And part of how they're building this factory is that message. And a lot of people are into it,
That is awesome. Yeah, thank you for telling that story. I think that's the coolest thing about the whole Tesla community is how passion drives a lot of these actions that a lot of us do, and like you said, it's for you, it doesn't seem like I'm sure it doesn't seem like a huge time commitment, because again, as you said, you're driving past that anyway, but I'm sure you're spending a lot of time. But I got to tell you, like, as somebody that follows Tesla, it's something that's so, like, the thing I always think about is like, man, like almost every day he's out there making these videos for people, it's like, it's so awesome. Like what other company or what other mission attracts this sort of like passion behind it? It's so great to see. What What is the thing that's really sticking out to you right now from the time you started to the time, like, say, the last video that you've made? What's the one thing that really sticks out from that area?
I'd say the thing that was the most impressive early on, I would call, people from the city that I could talk to about the permitting process and ask them questions. And so I interacted with a handful of City of Austin folks, and in talking to them, they've been in the construction and, planning business for decades. And they said, we have never seen a project go this fast. We've never seen construction happen at this rate of speed. And I heard that from contractors and just anybody I talked to who was slightly involved with the build. They're like, I cannot believe how fast they're doing this. And I didn't have a scale to measure that because I've never really watched a construction process before, other than, my own house. And that seemed to take forever. But this is really ripping along one of the fastest builds on the planet. It just isn't. So that was probably the one thing that really struck me. And again, just represents what Tesla is. It's a company that's on a mission to accomplish something great for the world. And the sooner they get there, the better for everybody. So there's major urgency in everything that Tesla does, and it right down to building a factory.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can attest to that internally. What does it seem? Because I know there were some rumors in the last couple of weeks that were saying like production's, it looks like it's going to start any minute. From your vantage point, do you feel like that's the case? Like, what are some things that you're seeing that could back that up or potentially refute it?
Okay, so part of flying the site is we occasionally run into insiders that work inside the building for Tesla, and we get little tidbits and knowledge. So we ran into a gentleman, I can't use his name here, but he was kind of a higher up guy, and he actually dealt a lot with Berlin build. And so he kind of bounces between Austin and Berlin and maybe Shanghai. And he essentially, and this was back in October, right? He essentially said at that time that production, not production, but test cars are already being built. Like they're finishing cars at that time. And my mind was blown. I could not believe I was hearing that because I've seen no evidence of that whatsoever. And so the potential for production at the end of 2021 was there. They didn't quite get there, obviously, and they probably just want to have a clean, break. Okay, let's start 2022. And I know the test vehicles have been sent out to the crash testing process and other analysis, but I have not yet seen a new production Model Y in the wild on the site. We're all of us are looking for it. Mm-hmm. All my viewers are looking for them in my footage because I'll miss stuff when I'm shooting, and people will see it in the video and tell me, and I'm like, oh, thanks. I didn't know that was in there. Now I can see it too.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's like crowdsource, like trying to figure out like what's going on with Tesla. That's so fascinating.
And then some of the people in the comments know a little bit about construction. Some of them actually work at the site. So you get little inputs here and there and you put it all together. And I'm learning. I don't think I've learned as much about construction as I have, when I started this channel. It's crazy. I mean, I love it. I might even go into construction. Who knows?
Nice. That's awesome.
A lot more fun now.
Right. That's awesome. So when you were talking to those folks that were telling you that this seems like it's way faster than anything they've ever seen from a speed build out perspective, did they give you some sort of like idea, like what is it 2 times faster, 3 times faster? Did you get any idea what that scale was?
Yeah, they didn't put a factor on it. Mm-hmm. They just were emotionally reacting to how they couldn't believe how fast it was. But they didn't say, oh, it was twice as fast or 3.4 times faster than, Samsung. Yeah. But I do know they did reveal certain things like, Tesla's not waiting for a certain approval to move forward with something, just like they did in Berlin.
Right.
And then being fully willing to back out of it and undo it if worse comes to worse. But in most cases, from what I've seen in my very limited, studying of building gigafactories, it kind of ends up getting approved and nothing has to be unwrung or unwound. So it's actually one of the techniques, just keep moving and the permits will come. And also the city of Austin gentleman I spoke to said, we give special allowances for projects like this. Big, huge, billion-dollar projects are put on the front burner. And we give, we do inspections a lot faster. We show up. We're on the ball because this is a big deal for the whole area.
It's like expedited build out basically. With
they have like their own internal mode for projects like this, where they go max speed on their end on behalf of the project. And that's really cool to see. I didn't know about that about Austin, but that was cool that they can pull it out if they need to land us a big factory, like this or Samsung or Apple or whoever else. I mean, a lot of big companies are coming to Texas, and I think Texas makes it easy for that to happen. And that's partly why this is a great choice.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I kept hearing before we moved to Austin. So we moved to Austin in 2020 October, and the one thing we always heard about Texas, business friendly. The one thing that shocked me when I came here was how nice the people were as well. But that's for a separate video that really stuck out to me. Are you seeing any changes around the factory? So as you drive by and you sort of see the plot of land, are you noticing like any more residential build outs, more businesses popping up, or does it not jump out? I'm curious if you've seen anything in the surrounding area that jumps out to you.
Not specifically in terms of like, new residential development popping up, up the street. We haven't seen that yet. What we did see is as soon as Tesla announced that they chose Austin and they were working with the Del Valle ISD, all of the real estate prices shot through the roof. I mean, houses as well as commercial real estate. And the reason I know that, besides being a logical conclusion, you could probably figure that out, right?
Yep.
But I wanted to buy some commercial real estate in the area around the factory. And so I called a realtor and they basically said, you missed it. It's already happened. The prices are out of they're out of the universe already. So we weren't able to do that. But shoot, it really has made an impact in the area in terms of planning, because I know there's a mall that's being planned to the south of the factory. And that's going to be a lot more of a traditional kind of shopping retail experience than what Del Valle currently has, which is, a pretty pathetic downtown area. Mm-hmm. But that's going to turn them into more of a real city that's going to attract a lot more people. And I know a fellow that bought a house very close to the Gigafactory. And I'll have to check with him and see if he's already seen appreciation, but he bought it right after they broke ground. So I'll have to keep tabs on him, but to be able to answer that question better in the future.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. I mean, I can tell you, I have one data point, which is our home. So we bought our home in October of 2020, and we're up in Liberty Hill. So this is like Northwest Austin, right? It's like outskirts of the metro area of Austin. And it's doubled since we purchased it 2 years ago. So really? I don't know how much of that is Tesla or how much of that is like everyone moving to Austin, right? And I'm curious, like from your perspective, how long have you been in the area? How long have you lived in Austin area?
So we've only lived in Austin for 5 years.
Okay.
We came from California. We were in California for 30. So we had the same kind of, culture shock in a good way with, wow, look how cheap these houses are. Although I have to say, the phrase "don't California my Texas" does come to mind. Like, okay, now that we're here, just no more. All right. We don't want to turn it into anything that it doesn't.
I love how somebody from California is like, all right, don't California my That's amazing. Yeah, I hear that being said a lot, and like along that line, like what made you move? What made you move to Austin from California?
So similar to you, in the people regard, when I visited Austin, because we started a branch of our business here back in 2015, and so I would visit from time to time to check in on the operation, and it felt like, because I grew up in Michigan, so I'm a Midwest boy, and we had the traditional upbringing where neighbors talked to each other. All the neighbors actually spoke the same language, so that was possible. the neighbors would watch out for the kids in the neighborhood and, that kind of thing. So when I came to Texas, I felt like, man, this feels like home, it feels like that old neighborhood feel. And it still feels like that. It's still a dramatic feeling of this is so great. And, my wife and I, from time to time, just randomly will say, we love our neighbors. We love the people here. It's just, we can't believe that we still love them. And it's been a few years,
Yeah.
But it's such a difference. And of course, economically, it's a great place for any kind of consumer good or service. And we're in the consumer service industry. And so our business just took off. Austin is just a great market. There's money here and people aren't afraid to spend it. And so we basically decided, you know what? I don't like California taxes and just the cost of doing business. I started not liking my customers because they're asking too much. It's like everything's got to be a Groupon or they're not going to do a deal. And I just got to the point where making the trips to Texas was like, what am I doing in California when we could be here saving money and, building better, not having anything to do with Joe Biden, but, for us, build back better for me.
Sure.
So that's what we did. And the rest is history. So, and I call it, besides my marriage and, like having a baby, moving to Texas was the best decision of my life.
Wow. And we've only been here for a year and a few months, but we say the same exact thing, my wife and I, and it's not that there was anything wrong with Pennsylvania per se. It just seemed like this area just had more opportunity. It seemed like Tesla moving to Austin seemed, there were a lot of tech companies already moving to the area. From what my understanding is, a lot of businesses were already moving to the area, but it seemed like, not only working at Tesla, but also understanding the community around it and the things that they're working on. It seemed like that stamp of approval from my end that said, okay, Austin is like, stuff's going to happen here, So especially if you think about the vision that Elon has, hoping that he executes against that. And this area could turn into something pretty crazy. And I'm curious to see from like, what have you seen change since, the 5 years that you moved to the area? Like, what are the things that stick out?
In general or?
Yeah, in general or both. I'd like to hear both of you. Yeah.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, prices of houses have risen from the great influx of out-of-staters who, had a different real estate market that they were coming from.
Yeah.
So it made it easier for them to overbid and to, upbid housing prices. And then, of course, the city of Austin is really good about property taxes and raising them because why not? Right. And so that's why I live outside of Austin proper for that very reason. I'm to the south, but I would not live in Travis County if you paid me because it doesn't, it's more of that, it's part way getting to that California mode with regard to taxes and just the cost of living in general.
Right.
But once you get out of that area, then Central Texas is great. And I love it. I do hope we slow down going that inflationary direction, though, because that's at a certain point going to stymie the growth because it'll knock out a lot of people who can't afford to be here. And we want to attract smart people to this market. As we have more of these companies coming in, we're going to need more talent. And the worst thing you can do to attract talent is have a really high cost of living. So we've got to keep it capped at a reasonable level. And as far as Tesla, I know you didn't ask me for predictions, but
I want to hear them. That was going to be one of my questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Elon bought, and I think now it stands at about 3,100 acres because it was 2,500 acres. And then he bought another 600 acres. And so here's what I think is going to happen. I think Starlink manufacturing is going to be on the west side of the 130 where that cleared off pad with a lot of, things being stored over there now is. I think that's going to be the Starlink factory. I think Neuralink's going to come onto the property. They'll probably be further north and they'll maybe build a cool building for them with a nice view. I think Boring Company is going to get involved. In fact, we were talking about we think there should be a tunnel underneath the 130 going from the east side to the west side. Excuse me. So, I really see that Elon is buying this huge amount of land that we're only using like 300 acres right now with the Gigafactory.
That's all it takes up.
The majority of it is empty. So what's that going to be for? And some of it's going to be the ecological paradise, which is what I think that extra 600 acres he bought, which was the horse ranch. I think part of that's going to be the paradise, and that's right on the Colorado. And he talked about the Colorado River and birds singing in trees. And so that's kind of that area. And I also heard a rumor from one of the security personnel on site that Elon's going to be building a house on some of that 600 acre property. Now, this is just a security guy, so not super tight with, Elon, but that's the word on the Tesla street for that location. So I'm excited to see any new builds on that property. I know the cathode plant is probably going to be next on the east side there, where all that metal's being stored. So that'll be the next thing that we'll be, doing drone flights for. So there won't be a shortage of content from that site probably for 5 years.
Wow. So that 3,100 acres, that's all like connected land. It's not like patched up. It's literally one.
So there's the east side of the 130 and the west side of the 130. So those are obviously separated by the freeway.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Okay.
But most of it's on the east side. The majority of it's on the east side.
Okay.
So, and it's all contiguous, except the Colorado. You jump the Colorado to get to that new 600 acres. But otherwise, it's contiguous on the east side there.
Got it. And so your thought is, because the Gigafactory right now is roughly 1/10, right, of the land that's there. So if it's about 300 acres, you said, right, that is taken up.
Roughly.
Yes. So 300 acres, he's bought 3,100. So it's 1/10. So in theory, he can fit 9 more Gigafactories in that footprint, right? And
yes.
then,
and that might be the case.
Yeah.
You might see 2 or 3 more Gigafactory size buildings constructed, for semi, for roadster, whatever,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, because the one thing that so there was a talk about, literally right before we jumped on here, there's been a couple of videos, and it's been discussed, that whole X holding company, right? Elon's been talking about X and sort of creating that conglomerate of all his companies. I wonder if we see an indication of that land, if your prediction comes true and say a Neuralink building pops up right in that same campus, could that be the indication that that's where Elon's heading? Because it's, to your point, is how much, I know Tesla has huge plans, but why buy so much land when that factory, how many factories are going to fit in there? Because after some point, logistics comes into play. Even if you were to do 20 million cars out of that factory,
you can't ship them. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. Right. So, and then if you think that the $25,000 car is going to be easier to build because of less parts and all these revolutions in manufacturing, theoretically, even if he needs 2 more Gigafactories in that area, that's still more than half of the land is wide open, right?
Right.
That is fascinating. I did not know there was that much empty space. I knew he bought a lot of land, but I didn't understand the sort of how much of it was taken up by the Gigafactory. The fact that it's only 1/10 is nutty. And I don't know why he wouldn't do that. What you just described, bring everything under one campus, essentially.
That's what it feels like. That's, when you go out there and you just look around and you're like, there's so much more land here than this huge factory is taking up.
Yeah.
He's going to start consolidating his forces and, the Elon companies to that location. Now, does that mean X.com is going to be, legally a structure? I doubt that. I don't think it would be entirely beneficial for this particular mix of companies to share the same ticket. I don't think that makes sense. It certainly doesn't in the stock, sense. But I'm not an expert by any means. But that is my personal thought, is that it's not going to be one legal entity, but it's going to be one campus.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. So then yeah, man, I still can't believe it that it's only 1/10. That just completely blew my mind. So I know you were talking about you wanted to show some materials on the video, that we were talking about before. Was there something that you wanted to talk about to those materials you were talking about that you wanted to show, or?
Oh, no, I had no intentions of anything whatsoever, but thought if somebody asked a drone, well, what kind of drone do you fly? Question, then I could hold this up.
Oh, yeah, please. Yeah.
This one.
Okay. Tell us all about it.
I mean, basically, it's an Autel Evo 2. It's an 8K camera. And the reason I have an 8K camera is so I can zoom in. And that way I keep the original footage completely identical from day to day. And but I can zoom in at will on the post production so that people can see what I'm trying to show them. So that's the first reason I got the 8K, and mainly that was the whole ball game right there. Obviously, this one, it's a $2,500 drone, so it's once you get into that range, all the features are there any way that you want, all the collision avoidance and blah blah blah. But an interesting story about this drone is this actual drone was on the roof of Giga Texas for a day.
Wow.
And the reason it was is because I had a battery malfunction and I was flying over the roof coming back north from the south end. And the battery went from 20% to 0 in one instant. And the drone forced a landing. So it just basically takes over and it lands wherever it is. And you can kind of steer it a little bit. So I found a nice open spot of the roof, which isn't hard, and landed, and then immediately went to security and said, this is what happened. And, this is where I drew them a little diagram. I said, I think it's about right here. But later I went and got the GPS coordinates of that landing spot. And I also, the next day, I shot my video with a different drone, and I found the drone in the video.
Nice.
That, correlated with the GPS location. So once security had that information, they were able to retrieve the drone, and they had it in the office there. So after I flew that second day with the other drone, I drove to the security office, and they presented me with this drone, saying, well, they said, what color is it? I'm like, it's orange. They're like, okay, it's yours. I'm like, it's mine. You told me you recognized my voice when I was walking up the stairs. And she's like, yeah, I know. But basically, she touched on something that you mentioned earlier, and that is Tesla people using our Quad Squad videos to help them do their jobs. And she said, we watch your videos every morning. We start the morning with your video to kind of set the day and know where things are and to, understand the context of the site.
Wow.
I was blown away. I was so humbled by that, man. That was the coolest thing ever, to know that not only am I not getting in the way of progress, but I'm actually aiding it in some small way. I mean, that is, for me, that's priceless.
That's amazing.
So awesome.
That is so cool. Because my follow-up question was, because I know you had a cease and desist letter come in, but now it sounds like Tesla is happy that you're doing this, right? So it's like, I was going to ask, like, what's the support level like nowadays?
Well, I mean, we're their marketing arm, right?
That's
so, so it's all one big happy fan. Like, we all get what we're all doing, right?
Yeah.
And we willfully do it, and we willingly do it. Mm-hmm. So, and they understand and use that. In fact, I had Tesla reach out to me last year, and they said, we're not going to pay you anything. Can we use your footage? And I said, of course, anything for the mission, right?
Yeah.
And they know that that's what I was going to say. And that's why there's no money. It's perfect. Put all that money into making cars.
That's so awesome.
Batteries.
That is so awesome.
But yeah, the cease and desist thing, it wasn't always that cheery, but that wasn't Tesla. That was the security that was hired by Tesla. They wear Tesla hats, but they're not Tesla employees, right? Mm-hmm. So, we had gotten visits occasionally when flying, because we fly from a real obvious spot, the pull off from the exit off the 130, the best viewing spot for the factory. So we flew from there for a while. So security would come up and talk to us, and what are you doing? And they wouldn't tell us we shouldn't be doing it. They're just asking a lot of questions, and you're just thinking, okay, the next thing they're going to say is, you can't fly here. And they never got there. But there was one day where I flew probably a little too close to an earth mover. it was a really great shot, by the way.
I believe it.
But it was a little tight, And so the driver complained to his supervisor, and that got to security, and they said, okay, we got to put the cap on this. We got to put the lid on it. So a couple days later, I was flying. Security comes up. I was flying from inside my car and rolled down my window, and she says, my supervisor wants to speak with you, and hands me her cell phone. So I talked to the supervisor, and he basically said, look, I am serving you with a cease and desist. You are to stop flying immediately. And if I catch you flying on the site again, I'm going to charge criminal trespassing charges on you.
Oh.
I call the sheriff, and we're going to charge you for trespassing. And so that night on my video, I put up a screen at the beginning of the video saying, viewers, I need your help. Help me get Elon's or Tesla's attention to ask for permission. Because I know if I can get to Elon, he'll give permission, because he did for Berlin, Shanghai. He doesn't have a problem with it. So it's not Elon, it's getting to him, getting to that inner circle on Twitter, So I said, let's just blast Tesla and Elon with tweets and see what happens. And it was probably like 7:00 in the evening when my video went up. And by 11:39 p.m., not that I'm keeping tabs, Elon responded on Twitter saying, I'm cool with drone flights. Just don't fly too close to people. And, basically don't do anything stupid and you'll be fine. And then he mentioned, security maybe overreacted. And so the very next day, I called my contact at Tesla, because I had been assigned a Tesla security contact, which was actually a Tesla employee. And so I called my contact and I said, hey, did you see Elon's tweet? And he said, absolutely. You guys are all set now. And I said, really? I said, what about, does security know? And he goes, yeah, everybody knows. And I said, it's 8:00 in the morning. How does everybody know so fast? And that was another Tesla blown away moment in my mind, where I was like, this company, has 100,000 or more employees. They're a big company. They got big fish to fry. They're on a mission to save the planet, basically. And so the importance of the approval for my drone flights is probably pretty much the bottom important task of the day. Yet still, that got immediate attention, got resolved instantly, and everybody knew about it the next moment. And all of a sudden, the light switch flipped, and now it's cool to fly a drone over Giga Texas, as long as you don't do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
And from then on, it's been smooth sailing, and any interactions we've had have been more reflective of that interaction with security recently, where it's real positive. And I straight up just say, hey, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of the whole thing. Elon, the mission, everybody who works here. I've got so much respect for the contractor crews that aren't even Tesla employees, but they're working like they're Tesla employees. They're kicking butt and taking names, man. This whole project has been so enlightening and eye-opening. And as an investor in Tesla, it makes me feel really secure to see that every day. And I can't imagine, I get investing in tech companies and, new ideas and concepts and volatile stocks. But when you see it in front of your own eyes every day, there's no doubt of where Tesla's going. And I've probably invested more in Tesla since I started flying over the factory than ever before that, because of that confidence that's gained by seeing it for yourself.
Wow.
I think a lot of the viewers on my channel are investors, and that's why they watch. They want to see, how secure are we? Are we going to be like Nikola and lay everybody off for a month? Or are we going to keep cranking every day? And I'll show you through my flights every day, they're not stopping, and they haven't stopped.
Right. Wow. That's a great story. Oh my goodness. That's amazing. I can resonate with that so much, because I saw so much of that, taking that human aspect of the company that doesn't get really reported on very often, or is not that well known. But it's, you went through it personally, it's like literally tweeting Elon, asking for permission. And like you said, I'm sure, God knows what his list of priorities are, but this was high enough in his list to say, yes, somebody who's creating this content for the Tesla community, he saw that as important and said, of course, go ahead and do it. I'm sure everyone helping you tweet helped for sure, but he could have very easily just said, this is not worth my time, whatever. But it was something important. And I think that's really the almost unorthodox way that Tesla, it has the relationship with its customer base, and it's not really a customer base. It's just like it's a community, like the whole worker, fan, content creator, whatever it is. It just seems so close knit. Even today, talking to you, it seems like I'm still like working for Tesla, but not really working for Tesla. I'm still carrying that mission forward in any way I can. And that story was so freaking awesome. It's so freaking awesome that you were able to experience that from that front. And now something that would be so in so many other ways, literally every other company, I feel like, and if I'm wrong about this, please, correct me. But like, I feel like any other company you do this for, it's probably cease and desist. Don't come back here ever again. This is our property. What are you doing? You're trespassing. Right.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. In fact, that happened out in Arizona with the, it wasn't the Nikola factory. It was is it
Lucid, Rivian?
Lucid.
Okay.
Yeah. The Lucid factory, Bear's Workshop was flying over those two factories, Nikola and Lucid served him with a cease and desist and, would not let him fly. And I think he was talking to them and they were in talks, it's like in talks. What does that even mean? Trying to negotiate some kind of thing. I guess they're really tight-lipped. For that being started by a former Tesla employee, it's really hard to understand why they're so closed off as a company. Because even the legacy companies know to not be that closed off these days. There's a certain amount of confidence that a consumer will get from a certain level of transparency of a company. And when you hit it right, then, you're in line with the current consumer thinking. Whereas that whole, I'm keeping it for myself. I'm not going to show you what we're doing, what we're up to. You can't fly over a property. You can't see anything whatsoever of our product, even though it's supposed to be rolling out next week. I mean, come on, what gives? It just doesn't make sense. So in that regard, yeah, a lot of companies would be of the same mind and just say, no, you can't fly over you can fly over. The FAA says I can fly over any private property I want. I just can't turn my camera on without your permission as the property owner. So that's the hitch.
Yeah, it's like that. It's so interesting because it's like, how much confidence does Tesla have in its own way of operating that they're so comfortable with you doing that drone footage? And like, to your point, like the confidence that gives you as an investor to be like, here you go, world. Here's what Tesla's doing at their brand new factory. It's not even built yet. You get to see all the ugly bits. And Elon's like, yeah, sure. Show the world. Like that is so confidence. Like it builds so much confidence in what they're doing, to resonate with you. And I'm curious, how did your journey as an investor and as a fan start? Like what was the beginning point?
It actually started a long time ago. I think 2011, 2012 ish. Yep. And I want to say the stock was somewhere around 350. I could be wrong. But, pre-split, obviously. So if you look at the numbers now, you have to do the split. But, and I started buying in, and then things went south with my business and personal life, and things just kind of crashed. And so I had to pull it out to use it to live, which was so sad. I will never do that again. So a couple of years ago is probably when I would say 3 or 4 years ago is when I started kind of dribbling, kind of just that constant drip of money into, I didn't even look at the price. I just, bought it every week, for a while. And then when I started flying the site, I got serious and I started moving chunks, like the kind of chunks of money you have to get your wife's permission to move. Kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Serious chunks.
And I talked to her. I mean, she knows Tesla. I mean, she understands what Tesla and Elon are. So, she's on board with, hey, as much money as we can plow into Tesla, do it, and we just finished building a pool. So it's like, I'm glad that's done. It's paid for. Now the next project's going to just be constantly plowing money into Tesla because it's just a no-brainer. When you see it up front and close, it's a no-brainer. I mean, it's not even a discussion, and then you hear this nonsense, Mary Barra, led the way and all it.
Oh, she led, Jeff.
She led. Case. I mean, just open your eyes and look at this factory. I mean, gee whiz.
Yeah. So wild. Does your friends, if you think about your immediate circle, your friend circle, family circle, are they as passionate about Tesla as you are? And if they're not, have you seen sort of like a transition in that with them? I'm curious to hear, like, have their thoughts about Tesla morphed over time as it's gotten bigger? I'm really curious to hear that from your point.
Yeah. So a lot of my friends know Tesla and, would like to own a Tesla.
Yeah.
If they could afford it. But they're not, they haven't, really dived in. The only people I know who are this dived into Tesla are the people I meet in the Tesla community. Like the other Quad Squad drone pilots that are Tesla guys. The Tesla Austin Owners Club and people there and interacting with them. And so just everybody who I've met based on Giga Texas has been one of us, one of the community. And outside of that, my normal circle of friends is just, people being aware of Tesla, but not really understanding at the level of, this is what's happening. And you talk to them, they ask questions, it's just like a religious discussion. You don't want to push your religion on somebody, but if they ask a question, I'm going to give them the straight scoop and say, look, in my opinion, you should be investing in Tesla and not in that over there. That makes no sense if you know what I know, Yeah,
absolutely. And so with that in mind, like, where do you see the company in 5 years? So based on all the information you've gathered, all the things that you know about the company, your own personal experience doing the Gigafactory research and all that footage that you've created. So like 2020, call it 2026, even if you want to do 2025, 2026, what is Tesla looking like at that point?
Well, obviously huge growth, 50% growth year over year. I'm just now going to start sounding like the YouTubers that I watch the channels of with financials in mind, because, that's kind of where I've got my information. And I kind of check that, because sometimes it sounds really optimistic. And so it's good to have a gut check when you go out to a factory and watch it being built and you imagine, okay, is that number within reach? Is that possible? And if the answer internally is hell yeah, then you know that, okay, those are a good set of numbers, But yeah, I think it's just going to go. I wouldn't invest in it if I didn't think it was going to blast through the roof and continue doing so. Right. I had a friend tell me that he said, well, yeah, 2021 was a great year for Tesla, but, the inference there, it's like, don't expect it to keep going. And I do expect it to keep going because we're just at the beginning of the curve, and it's going to keep going, and it's going to continue to keep going for probably another 10 years at this rate before we see any signs of market saturation, which is the only thing that's really going to slow it down.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's like a mental block with a lot of people where they feel like, well, it's already gone up so much in such a short period of time. There is a law of physics that will prevent it from going up higher, right? And that is always such it's like, I understand why they would think that way, because it would feel too good to be true. But if it's built on fundamentals that say, hey, this is what it should be. If Tesla gets to 20 million cars by 2030 and full self-driving works, and they have a $25,000 car out in the market, and the bot is released, and the Cybertruck's a hit, and the HVAC works, and the solar works, and the utility works. It's just a math problem at that end, right? It's just a math problem. You just sit down, you punch in the numbers, and it says Tesla blah, right? Here's the stock price. So I think that's the one advantage we have in the community, is that we are we understand the company so well. Or at least we think we do. We could all be wrong, and this whole thing could collapse tomorrow. But I would bet my money on the other side where it's not going to do that. But it just seems like it's completely changed the way I think about what is possible, right? And having worked there as well, it's completely recalibrated my thought process around. Just because it seems very, very hard and it's already been done at such a high level, it doesn't mean that it stops. And then you stop and think, so then why would you say that? And it's just, again, sit down and do the math problem. logically, try to figure out what's going to happen in the next few years. Is it possible? Yes. Okay, then it's possible that it can go higher. It's really changed my way of thinking there. So what are some things around your footage or the factory that you've seen that you want to hit on that we haven't discussed yet? Is there something else you wanted to bring up specifically about that site?
I mean, there's just so many different things going on. When I first started flying it, I call it construction Disneyland, because when you first go to Disneyland as a kid, and there's so many exciting things going on, you don't know where to go first, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what it felt like. It's like, where do I fly first? This is before I kind of developed my route style of flying, and kind of my program now is very locked in, and I've got my routine down. But back then it was just like, where do I go first? Do I go over there by those excavators and try to catch them, I don't know, digging up a mud monster? Or do I go over here and watch this crane that's like so tall, I got to fly extra high to avoid hitting it, and swing around these big steel beams, like it's nothing. I mean, it's just crazy. So every part of the process has been really just a really revelatory thing for me, in that I didn't realize I even cared about construction, let alone liked it or understood a little part of it. But it's amazing, what you can learn watching something happen right in front of you. And I think that's the value of my videos in the end, from a historical context, is, we can go look back and sort of like how to make a gigafactory. Here's how to make a gigafactory.
Right.
Here are the steps. This is what it takes. You're willing to do that. You got the dough. You can do it.
So much value is like, that's so true. It's like you're documenting the blueprinting of how to build a factory that is better than every other factory before it. So it's like you have the latest and greatest, right? And then once the next gigafactory is built, then that's going to be even better. It's like, it's an incredible value to the community.
And they keep improving. And I guess one thing to address that question that is very recent is with the Berlin factory, I believe they have the air ducting on the roof, if I'm not mistaken. And so that was the factory preceding Austin. In Austin, we've got all the ducting is on the top floor of the building. It's like hung from the ceiling on the top floor. So there's nothing on the roof of the building. And I think the reason for that is to maximize space for solar, because the solar panels have already started getting lifted onto the roof. So we're just waiting now to start seeing the panels installed. But so that's my thing. So even between, Gigafactory 3 and Gigafactory 4, or whatever numbers we're on now, there's incremental improvements constantly with Tesla. And so it's just exciting to see that, like that one little detail. It all matters.
Yeah. And it plays into that whole thing that, Tesla and Elon keep talking about, is that the Gigafactory itself is a product, right?
Right.
And so a change like that is no different than, Tesla changing the HVAC system, super bottle, whatever else they did in the Model 3 and the Model Y. It's no different. Right. And seeing that play out physically is super fun.
Yeah. And I think, when I first heard that, the idea that the factory is a product, I thought, why didn't I think of that? That is so genius. It totally should be the product, And Elon even goes further now and says, in the end, the Tesla is going to be known for manufacturing. In the end, that's what we're going to be. Sort of like Henry Ford is known for the assembly line. Yeah. It's like that. Tesla is going to be the company that reinvented manufacturing and made it possible to do this. And I believe that, because they think different enough, and they're willing to improve incrementally, and they're willing to let the guy at the bottom of the totem pole go to the guy at the top of the totem pole in one fell swoop with you're not going to get fired. In fact, you're probably going to get a bonus or whatever, because you just saved us $5 million, right? I mean, that's the culture you want at a company. It's amazing that, the anti-handbook, I'm thinking about adopting that for my company.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a really powerful way to run a business.
That book really did go a long way. I mean, speaking about it internally, it's like that was such a shock, because I didn't know anything about it when I joined the company. And that was or maybe I had heard rumors. I can't remember, but I joined it and I read this thing and I'm like, because usually when you join an HR, it's like, here's all the paperwork you got to sign. And of course there was paperwork you had to sign that said, you can't go in there and steal stuff or whatever. But like, here are the rules. It's a page and a half or 2 pages. And I read it. It's like, literally, we trust you to do, we empower you. You can talk to anybody. Always think, to do the best thing for the company from a first principles perspective. There should never be any sort of bureaucracy in between you and trying to get to a problem. That's it. Go play. I'm like, okay, all right, let's go. It's really a great tool. It's a great tool. And I would encourage anybody who owns a business or is looking to set up some sort of way of running a business. I would highly encourage them to adopt that, because it does make a difference, even just from a standpoint of setting a culture and making people feel empowered. It's huge. It goes a long way. People read it. People have read it, and that's one thing that always stands out to them is like, wow, this thing is great. So, yeah.
Well, the one caveat is, if you're a CEO and you do want to use the anti-handbook handbook, you also have to sleep on the factory floor one night.
You got to talk the talk and walk the walk. Right? Exactly. It's so true. What is do I still have you for a few more minutes? I know we're running up on an hour.
Yes, sir. Let's go an hour. That's fine.
Okay, cool. 5 more minutes. Perfect. What is the biggest weakness that you've seen? So if there's a weakness you want to call out from what you've seen so far on your drone footage, like be it egress, issues, or you're seeing something that could potentially become a problem from like, is the lot going to be big enough? Do we have enough space to build this lot out to make sure there's enough parking? Does anything stand out from your perspective?
Well, I know for a while there, we were all concerned about water management, because that's a huge part of a project like this. And especially with the Colorado there, there's a lot of attention that gets focused on water management and water handling, and dewatering earlier in construction, and so that was kind of because you have to put it in the context of, well, this is Tesla and Elon, and I'm sure they can see this happening. But either way, I did some in my bonus time on my videos. That's where I kind of freewheel and just go anywhere the action is. And so I would do, if I was concerned about the water management, I would go and do kind of like a water management bonus time, because I know enough of the Tesla people are watching the videos, because it's easier than, making them themselves. Right. And they're already there every day. And so as long as I feel like, okay, I'm going to message this to the staff this way, because, I don't know what I'm doing, but it looks bad from this angle. So let me show you this angle. There was another case where there was a steel beam that was off kilter, because I think the column was too short. And so the steel beam was at a different angle than the rest of the roof line. And you could see it from the air really easily. I wasn't sure if you could see it that easily from the ground. Like, I didn't know if, the team had the perspective to be able to extrapolate that there might be a problem. So I actually sent a clip of that footage to one of the contacts that works higher up in Tesla at the site. And I never heard back anything, not that I was expecting to, but, it's just little stuff like that. I feel like, at least if I do have a novice concern, and I'm probably wrong 100% of the time on them, but even if I did have a legit concern that was actually a problem, and I did something about it and it got fixed, because, the next day that beam got fixed. They shored up that column with another hunk of metal and then reattached the beam, and it was all, hunky dory. So, you never know if you had anything to do with it, or if it's coincidence, or if they planned it that way all along. But you look at it like a team effort, I certainly don't want to get in the way of building the factory. And if I can help in any way, I will, but
that's great. So, it's crowdsourcing OSHA and safety. How awesome is that? That is so sick. That is so cool. Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. It's awesome. The service you're doing to the Tesla community is amazing. The fact that you're out there every day creating these videos, and the fact that Tesla is using them to make that a factory build out safer and better. is, I think, such a gift to them and such a gift to the Tesla community. And of course, that's your time that you're taking to do that. So thank you so much on the behalf of the Tesla community. And having worked at Tesla, I can also tell you stuff like that is incredibly valuable for the employees working there. So it's great that you're doing this. Keep doing it as long as it's fun for you and as long as you want to do it. And yeah, man, thank you so much for coming on and talking with me for a little bit here. And we should grab a drink sometime. We both live in Austin. I would love to take you out and to a beer and maybe grab some food and have a drink, if that's cool with you.
Yeah, you're on.
Awesome, man. Let's do it. Thank you so much, Jeff. I really appreciate you. And I appreciate everyone watching. We'll talk to you guys later. See you in the next one.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.